Well, welcome everybody. I know people are still joining, but let's go ahead and kick it off. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kim Nauer, and I am the product marketing lead here at Hireology. Thank you for joining us today for our second Customer Connect event of 2023. I'm excited to be here to moderate today's presentation, and we will jump right in. So we have a lot of exciting topics to discuss today. So first, we're going to have Anil Harjani, who is our SVP of Revenue, who is going to be sharing some insights on the critical role quality has in driving business outcomes and how it places a role in attracting and identifying better talent. Then I'm going to jump in and review some tangible ways that you can really improve your quality of candidates in Hireology through your hiring process and sourcing strategies. And then finally, we have Christina Hall, who's going to round it out with some practical tips on how the San Diego Padres baseball team has improved their quality of candidates by using Hireology. And then we'll have a formal section for questions at the end, but you are welcome to ask any questions throughout the presentation in the chat. We have Jess Baldwin, who's our customer marketing lead, who's going to be monitoring the chat for those questions, and we'll answer questions throughout if you don't want to wait until the end. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with Anil.
Thanks, Kim. Hello and welcome to Customer Connect 2023. We're so happy to have you here virtually, and we're so grateful for this group of dedicated customers and champions who continue to push us to do bigger and better things with Hireology. If we haven't met, I'm Anil Harjani, SVP of Revenue here at Hireology. I'm here to talk about some exciting new data we have to share with you all today. So let's just go ahead and get started. So if you've been paying attention to the recent BLS job reports, you'll notice that more and more people are getting back to work, and we continue to navigate inflation and a possible recession. How many times have you heard that on the news? Which means some of you might actually start to see an uptake of applicants, which is something we haven't really experienced since pre-pandemic. And this means we really want to start focusing on what we can do to attract the best of the best, and then identify and move forward with the superstars within your pipeline. Which brings me to the key theme of today's session: quality. Why does quality matter so much? And what can you do to not only attract better quality candidates, but also hire the very best? So sit back, relax, and let's get into some data. An interesting McKinsey study to start off of more than 600,000 workers across a range of sectors dove into the productivity and outputs of better quality talent. I won't get into the depth into the methodology here, but you can share the link. We'll share the link with you afterwards so you can take a look. But overall, the research found that superior talent is 8 times more productive than average talent. To put this another way, one person in the top 1% of your organization is worth 12 in the bottom 1%. Thinking about it this way really shows a deep long-term impact of finding the right person for open roles. I think it's important for you to recognize this. We often talk about this even in Hireology in our sector, the tech sector. You got a 10x engineer or a 10x employee. It shows in the data. And so I think, sometimes you got to look at this objectively, unemotionally. Sometimes there are talent that provide 10x output, and who are those relative to those who are, perhaps costing you more money. And let's get into the next slide, and I'll talk about that too. So similar research has looked into the actual monetary costs of employing average or below average workers. Most studies come up with a cost of around 30% of that employee's annual salary. So for poor performing employee making, let's say $60,000 a year, costs your organization $18,000 in the cost of poor outcomes. And then there's obviously the general cost of replacing them eventually, because either they're voluntarily or involuntarily depart. So there are literally, negative ROI employees. And it sounds terrible to say that. We're in a world where your business, in order for you to build your best team, you really do need your best employees with you. And those that are not really generating the outcomes, you want to limit that eliminate it as much as possible. So how do we dive into this? So I could go on, but I think everyone here understands the importance of better quality talent. The question is then exactly, what can you do to attract better applicants and identify better candidates? The way I like to look at this is that, quality attracts quality, and we'll get into what this really means throughout today. But what this means is that if you focus on quality yourself, that means creating a quality working culture, designing better quality jobs, executing quality processes with the candidate in mind, and using quality technology to help you do all these things, you're more likely going to naturally attract quality talent. Think about how you would do this for your business or your facility location. You want to provide better quality services, quality products, quality care. You have developed and spent a significant amount of time developing high quality processes for engaging those customers, whether digitally or in person. And this is all in order to drive better outcomes for that customer and your organization. So your HR and recruiting strategy should be the same. Quality jobs, processes, and culture is going to get you that better hiring and HR outcomes. Let's take a closer look at the first one, starting with quality culture. Jumping to the next slide. If you've been to these events in the past, you know that we survey job applicants in the key sectors we serve annually. This is really an early sneak peek at our 2023 research, where we found that an employer's culture is the real deciding factor in whether or not a job seeker applies to a job and whether or not an employee sticks around long term. More than a third of survey respondents would actually take a lower paying offer if they were confident the company's culture met their needs. And even more say they're loyal to their existing employer because of the culture. So let's take a look at what some of the actual quotes we got, how our candidates defining culture in their own terms. And so, let's take a look at some of these. One down below there, a company's culture is essentially its core values, traditions, attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs shared within its workforce. Again, this is in the language of the job seeker. And then over there on the right side, positive, uplifting work environment, focusing on what can be improved, not what is wrong, nurturing environment where the senior staff, all of you, helps develop the junior staff. So reading through these quotes, you'll notice a few key themes. Most people think of a great culture as an environment that includes some of these factors I'm about to mention, core values that matters to everybody and how it's being used to operate day to day. Feedback, whether it's positive or constructive. Feedback helps employees feel confident in their work and skills, helps them understand where they can grow and learn. It shows that their managers and leaders really do care about their employees' well-being in the future. And, we all know that we all do actually care about them, but they just need to know more. They would like to engage more in that conversation. And showing and speaking about it generates belief. Growth and training opportunities. Again, this shows that you're not only looking for somebody to simply just do the job for you in exchange for a paycheck. Rather, it shows you're really invested in their future and their long-term success. Those, and then of course, DEI. Again, you'll notice a theme here, but prioritizing DEI shows that you're not only committed to doing the right thing, but you're committed to making your organization a place where everyone feels valued, included, and equal, no matter their background, race, and gender. And finally, none of this is possible if it doesn't come from the top down. Your company leaders and managers need to set an example. If they don't, the rest of the organization has no incentive or motivation to do the same, essentially creating a less than ideal culture. Let's look at some more data here. The last thing I want to mention on culture is how exactly do job seekers know if an employer's culture meets their needs? Well, we just ask them. And for the most part, job seekers look at a company's website to determine this, right? Have you taken a look at your website recently, your career site? They're even more likely to trust your website than Glassdoor, which was surprising to us, to be honest. So it just really shows the value of your, what we're calling owned properties. You own this, you control this message when it comes to recruitment marketing. Highlight your culture wherever you can on your website and on social channels. Job seekers are looking here and they take it seriously when deciding their work. And you know what? I took it seriously too. When I was looking for work, you look at companies' websites. I looked at Glassdoor. It tells you almost everything you need to at least generate an impression. All right, now we covered culture. Let's talk about the next factor in attracting quality talent and designing quality jobs that great job seekers actually want to take. Again, if you've been to one of these events before, you've likely heard Adam Robinson, our CEO, discuss this, but it's an important topic that still resonates today, perhaps more than ever. So in our annual survey of job seekers for the past several years, we were outright asked what they look for in a job outside of pay. And further, we asked what would motivate them to take a slightly lower paying offer. By and large, the top 3 reasons are schedule flexibility, career growth opportunities, and fulfilling, enjoyable work. Much of this goes hand in hand with a great culture, but some of this you have even more control over than you do when it comes to culture. So let's take a look at what of these might mean. Schedule flexibility. I know when many of you see this, you might think, well, I can't offer remote work, but this is so much more. We need to expand our thinking about what this really means. People just want to make work for them. They want to work, but they want to have some say and flexibility about when they work so they can navigate their lives outside of their own 4 walls. And when you can offer this sort of understanding and support, people are going to take your jobs. People are going to take your jobs and they're going to stick around, even if you can't pay quite as much as, let's say, Amazon or the business industry. Okay, so giving them some say in the matter is just as much value. Career growth. I mentioned this in the culture section, but again, it's worth mentioning. As humans by nature, we like to feel that we're working towards something. There's some type of mission, some type of goal. We like to know there's opportunities for bigger and better things or challenges in the future. And you can offer this by, of course, by defining career paths for all types of roles, but also implementing job shadow programs, offering to pay for training and other certifications, opening up new roles internally first, or socializing it first in some forum, some informal forum, even if that has to be the case, of simply having an open door policy. When you take the time just to learn and understand your team's goals, first and foremost, just have the conversation. That's not hard to do. And then if paths are not clearly defined, at least you can have a organic conversation of what's possible, because sometimes you never know. Things open up more often than not unexpectedly, and you want someone to be ready for that opportunity. And finally, fulfilling and enjoyable work. This one is somewhat vague and tough to define, because one person might find fulfilling, the next person might find not. So how do you create consistency? There's one universal aspect of fulfillment that I think is knowing that you're working towards something bigger than yourself. So something that is positive impact, in the world, right? There's many ways you can help frame the work so it fits in this definition. So in healthcare, you're literally helping people become healthy. I mean, that kind of speaks for itself often enough, and that's really important. If you're not in the automotive space, the way I like to think about it is that these are large, meaningful purchases that really create this delightful mobility experience for people to transition between work and home and school. And they're sort of in between other meaningful activities, but they spend a lot of time in this space of the vehicle. And that experience in of itself is meaningful. In hospitality, it's to create an amazing experience for guests so they can create, fond memories and be their best selves, whether, be ready for work when they're there as a gathering space, or for leisure with their family and friends, enjoying sort of the many life moments that exist when people are going to a property. And so creating meaning is super important. And I really want to encourage all of you to think about what are some interesting ways to do that, or showcase that meaning either via your job descriptions, or even in person when you're meeting with your candidates. Let's move on and let's look at what a really well-designed, speaking of job descriptions, what might look like. You'll see, this phrasing in a job description touches on all 3 of these priority job aspects. And I wouldn't take these lightly. Job seekers read these carefully. They're not those, especially the ones that really are trying to figure out what they're getting themselves into, right? So the first one, flexibility. You can see over there, it says you decide when you work and what you don't. and when you don't, you do what you love in a way that fits your life. You'll see, down below that they note again that you can make your own schedule, right? These are real job descriptions, okay? It's possible. Growth, again, down below, you'll see a few mentions of this. Employees can pursue their education with tuition discounts and build their skills with online training and earn CEUs. Meaningful work. In paragraph 2, you'll see this org is an employer of choice for CNAs. It's in the CNA healthcare space. Seeking rewarding careers that make caregiving a personal and work-life balance possible. Again, this is simply asking someone to fill the role of a CNA. It's telling them that this is a rewarding opportunity that they get fulfillment from and fit with their lives. If you haven't noticed, I've emphasized the word their. It's really about them, right? As much as it's about you, but you're really sort of engaging their inner intrinsic motivation to really engage with you. I mean, this is really an ad to engage with you first and foremost. You do. I want to make sure you recognize that you got to live this through and through throughout the entire process and into your organization. So it's not, it can't be just lip service, right? So if this is true in your organization, showcase it. If it's not, see what you can do to make it true. Okay, moving on. And of course, simply building a quality job is only the beginning. You need to make sure you're connecting with quality candidates where they are. And so we've used these three terms before, paid, earned, and owned channels. And you can see that those channels are sort of more in line with what we all understand as job boards for paid, employee referrals on social media for earned, and your own website. These are your own assets, your own properties, career sites. You have control over these particular assets. And so quality jobs really needs to be distributed across all these avenues because you want to connect with quality candidates across every channel that they may be engaging with. So just a reminder here for all of you. Next is quality processes. Quality talent isn't going to put up with inconvenient processes and poor hiring expectations. Speak from experience here. People just drop out of processes, and I know all of you experience that. But what does a quality process look like where quality attracts quality talent? Let's keep going. Again, we asked our candidates, our seekers in our annual survey, what is great talent looking for in a hiring process? Remember, you're going after the best of the best. Well, typically, the top three factors we see: mobile, speed, and convenience. So let's look at these more closely. Mobile, according to our survey respondents, to the survey respondents, this means being able to apply on their mobile device easily. Application is short. You don't need to make a login and password. You don't have to upload documents. It's easy to communicate with recruiters on their mobile phones. We see a ton of applicants applying in the evenings, on the weekends. They are not sitting in front of their desk. They're not on a website. They're not on, many of them don't even own a laptop or a desktop. They're doing it on their mobile device. It's got to be easy. Speed. Most of our survey respondents say they not only want to be contacted after applying within the first 48 hours, but within that time frame, they also want to get an interview scheduled. We also found that about a third are hired in less than 2 weeks, with the vast majority getting hired in less than 3 weeks. So how fast do you want to be? Less than 3 weeks? Less than 2 weeks? How about less than a week, right? If you move fast enough, you got first dibs. Convenience. When it comes to convenience, job seekers say that every step should be easy. If at any point it gets too cumbersome, they will drop out. Many say they drop out because the application takes too long, or they ghost because the hiring process itself is too cumbersome. The job seeker has now told you, all of you, they will ghost. They are ghosting because it's too cumbersome. Too many steps, lots of back and forth, too much time in between. All those reasons hold true. Simply put, it needs to be easy for them. Otherwise, they can and will move on to other opportunities. If you're thinking, these job seekers are demanding, you're right, because they can be, because they have options, and we need to just live into that reality. And so mobile, speed, and convenience need to be a priority to have a quality process. All right, moving on. Let's put this into practice. All right? Let's take Jack. As you can see, he's a skilled technician looking for a job. So let's talk about one example, one scenario, and maybe some of this will resonate with you. Jack finds a job on a job board. Let's say job description doesn't have all the key benefits you might offer, right? So he's left kind of questioning that. He applies anyways, but it's tough to do on his phone. He's got to fill out multiple repetitive fields. Maybe it's 2 pages, maybe it's 20 fields. All right. Takes him half an hour, over an hour. He's on the bus home. He's trying to drive. He's at a stoplight. Who knows? Yeah, he's in a coffee shop, but suddenly it's taken up an hour of his day. Somehow makes it through and submits his application anyways. Great. You got an application. You don't know how long it's taken, but you've got an application. You're happy, but he doesn't hear back from you for 5 days, right? And then when he gets an interview, great. You're happy, you have an interview with a candidate, seems great. But your interviewers are not prepared. He's asked to come in multiple times for different interviewers or interviews. And every time you schedule with him, it's done via email. So it takes multiple days just to get something on the calendar. Your job seeker checks maybe email once a day. They look at their phone 300 times a day. They look at the surface of their phone when they get notifications that many times, but email just once. The whole process takes a month, and then he's gotten 2 other offers in between. Which one do you think he's going to take? All right. So let's take a look at the next example. Let's just walk through the process. What could this look like? And it's all very doable. Obviously, Jack finds a job on the job board. It aligns everything he's looking for. Remember those examples we gave you in the job ad. Just imagine that was an example of a job ad that has those characteristics. He applies over to his phone. He completes only a few fields, takes sub 10 minutes, maybe even shorter. No login or attachment required. And we're thinking, I want my resume. There's ways to get that, but most importantly, let's get this great candidate in. This is what they want. And maybe in another scenario, let's say he passes by your dealership, and he quickly applies by texting a phone number you have listed on a flyer that's out in the front, right? You can easily see that, or in a banner per se. He hears from you the next morning via text. You get an interview scheduled in the next morning. Because in a text you offered several time options, and it was easy for him to respond via text, picking just one of them. He might even show up same day or next day. The virtual interview is easy for him to take on his break or his current job. So you've given him flexibility. It's kind of a symbolic of maybe your culture. And you stay in touch with him via text for the rest of the steps. Almost no email involved. The whole process takes less than a week. It's possible, it's doable, and it happens with our top box customers, like many of you here on the call. And those are the ones that I can tell you from speaking to many of you have found success in keeping your team staffed and providing the best possible experience to your customers. All right, the final aspect, next slide, of our quality processes that I'll add is less about attracting quality, but more identifying and confirming quality. It's called sort of validation stage. So everything I've set up to this point, process-wise, has been about making it easy and convenient for quality candidates to stick around, and it's important to make sure you're able to identify and move forward with those candidates. But that's where background checks, skill tests, and reference checks come into play. It's been a while since we talked about these. Okay, we were at a different time and space. Certainly, we're in applicant flow. It's still a problem, not as significant as it was in the past, but depending on the role, you might want to add these to your process to make sure you're not adding liability to your organization, that you're hiring the right people with the right skills and experience, and you can gain it added, just call it peace of mind. They're making the right decision. Remember, $18,000 problem if you're hiring somebody who's not a right fit on a $60,000 salary, for example, right? It's a big problem. Is it maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's worth it to just run that extra step, so you're not causing yourself heartburn down the road. And of course, obviously Hireology is one of the platforms that gives you the power to run these checks directly from your account. And if you weren't familiar about it, you're going to learn more about it today, certainly. And but more so, we're going to stay on this topic of quality, and that is something my colleague and good friend Kim is here to kind of touch on in the next session. So obviously we can, the fourth piece of our quality attracts quality theme is quality technology. So I just kind of hinted at that, but this is when I'm going to hand it off to Kim. But much of which I outlined above, as you can see in the slides, is just easy to compete. It's much easier to complete when you have a quality technology to support you, including tools like career sites, automated referral programs, candidate texting, automation, background checks, and then some. And of course, you are all Hireology customers, so you do have access to these tools at your disposal. Certainly, the key is making sure you're getting the most value from them, and your trusty customer support team and customer success team is there to help you in leveraging all these tools and providing you access to them to build your best team. So with that, It's been a pleasure spending time with you this morning. I will still stick around, obviously, for questions and be with you listening to this. I learn something every time. And with that, I'm going to invite my colleague and friend Kim Nauer to drive us even to a deeper topic into the realm of quality. So with that, Kim, welcome to the party. I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you, Anil. 3 minutes early. Look at that. I do want to address a couple questions came up in the chat just around the deck. We will be sending out a copy of the slides as well as the recording of the presentation to everybody who's registered for the webinar today. So with that, let's dive into the next session, which we're going to really take what Anil said and talk about how you can apply that. So that's me. I already introduced myself at the beginning of the call, but nice to meet everybody. Product marketing lead here at Hireology. I started here about 3 months ago, and so I'm super excited to be here. And this is my first Customer Connect, so I couldn't be more thrilled to join you all here today. So for those of you who are newer to Hireology, we help you accomplish your hiring goals in 3 main ways. The first is it's essential to move quickly when it comes to hiring in HR. Candidates are in high demand and they're not going to wait around for you to make a decision. That said, speed alone isn't enough. So we also want to ensure that our platform helps you hire high quality candidates. And then finally, you need the intelligence and the tools to make those smart hiring decisions. So as you know, today's discussion is really going to center around quality. So our clients have seen significant improvements in their expected business outcomes when using Hireology. What we see is that by focusing on improving processes, making sure you have a diversified sourcing strategy, and capturing the most qualified candidates with communication tools, Hireology can help increase the quality of applicants by 60%. So that's more than half. That's incredible. So let's dive in to figure out how we can actually help you do that. First, we're going to talk about how you can leverage automation and verification tools like the pre-screen surveys, reference checks, and background checks that Anil mentioned to really streamline your hiring process and help you focus on that talent that meets your requirements. Then we're going to dive into how you can optimize your sourcing strategy by leveraging your talent database for referrals. So let's start by reviewing automation. I mean, automation's everywhere, right? ChatGPT has taken over the world, and it's really just transforming the way that we work. So the hiring process, as you all know, can be very time consuming, and applicants might not provide all of the required information. In the past, you'd have to spend significant time reaching out to those applicants. So requesting information that they're providing, requesting that information that might be missing from their application, back and forth, etc. So automating some of these tedious tasks are really critical to the hiring process. You can opt into automatically requesting that information for people who didn't provide things like first name, last name, or resume. And this really allows you to spend less time on all of those administrative tasks and more time focusing on meaningful human interactions. So you might be asking yourself, why would there be missing information in the first place? And how does automation really help with quality? So job boards all have different requirements that's needed to submit an application. So for example, ZipRecruiter doesn't require a last name, and MyCNA doesn't require a resume, which is a little wild. But automation can really help by triggering an email to those applicants and request that information automatically. So you also might have a candidate that has outdated information, and you can also gather it in that way. So if one of your applicants was missing that critical information, you might have put them on the bottom of the pile, right? And just kind of ignored them and focused on the people who already had the information. But because job boards have those different requirements, you might have missed out on a top candidate that is a quality applicant. So we just launched this feature back in March, and we are already seeing that almost half of applicants with missing information have progressed on to quality candidates. So again, this helps you not miss out on that top talent. So let's take a look at how you can start benefiting from automation. So the first thing that you need to do is really opt in to enable automatic automated outreach. And that's the screenshot you can see here on the right, where you can enable that automated outreach. It will request that, again, the first name, last name, email address, and resume. You can also see the red bar next to the applicant up on the upper left-hand corner here, and that's where it says incomplete. So that is how you can, trigger that manually if you haven't already opted in to automated outreach. So kind of a two-pronged approach there. And from the candidate's side, this is what the request will look like. So an email is sent to them requesting that they provide that additional information, and they can easily update the information, which is the screenshot on the right, without having to log in. So to reiterate, you really no longer have to spend time back and forth trying to gather that information. And by having complete profiles, you might find that top talent that you might have otherwise overlooked. All right, let's switch gears to pre-screen survey. Pre-screen survey really allows you to evaluate the applicant based on a series of questions, right? And as soon as an applicant submits their application, they will get an immediate automated follow-up email thanking them for their interest and providing a link to that pre-screen survey. So you can gain that immediate insight into whether or not an applicant possesses the right qualifications, the skills, or experience necessary for that role. So then you can spend your time, your valuable time, only really reviewing the candidates that meet those requirements. So pre-screen surveys really help improve quality in a couple of ways. The first is you can really craft statements that align with the exact requirements of the role. So you can make knockout statements that will result in an immediate 0% score, which are good for job requirements that just cannot be compromised. So for example, if you are hiring somebody and they need to, lift 50 pounds, you only want to interview candidates who can do that, right? Second, you can really focus on specific skills and experience levels. You can also find to help you find your ideal candidate. For example, if you want to confirm that a candidate has, say, a certain number of years of experience for the job. And then finally, you can really save your valuable time and resources by interviewing only the candidates that meet those requirements, right? And help you find the right talent. So Hireology customers who use pre-screen surveys have twice as many quality applicants. That's huge. So let's see how you can implement that. The first thing you want to do to take advantage of pre-screen survey is you need to make sure that pre-screen survey is included in your hiring steps. You can then pick a template or create your own. So you have the ability to edit or remove any of the survey statements. We tend to recommend about 10 statements just to make sure that the candidate is really meeting your qualifications, excuse me. And as I mentioned before, you do have the ability for the knockout statement, which is the lower screenshot here. And that's really, again, going to set that candidate score to 0 so you can focus on the candidates that really meet those requirements that are truly make or break questions. What's nice is that once somebody completes the pre-screen survey, you can then filter in our platform to only really focus on applicants that score, say, a 70% or higher. So you can sort it and just see it from highest to lowest. So you can easily go down your list and manage your applicants. So pre-screening is just a really great tool to really help you identify better quality candidates. All right, let's pop over to reference checks. So I think we've all been there before and made a bad hire, right? It happens. But let's see how reference checks can really help prevent that. And I'm sure we're all familiar with just the concept of reference checks. And if you've done this, you know it's very time consuming, lots of back and forth scheduling, and it can be challenging to really know what to do with all the comments that you're getting about a candidate in aggregate. So by automating your reference checks, you can see a 92% reduction in time spent over traditional phone interviews. So again, from a speed perspective, you're not picking up the phone, you're not playing phone tag, there's no ghosting of the interview time, it's all automated. And so Skill Survey is the leading provider of digital reference checks, and it's available directly in our platform. So not only can you speed up the process, but you're also able to really gather that information, consolidate the feedback, like I was saying earlier, and analyze it in a meaningful way to really make smart hiring decisions. And we find that at least 86% of references complete the survey when it's done digitally. So again, let's talk about how reference checks really improve candidate quality. So first, reference checks can help verify the information provided by the candidates. So things like work experience or job responsibilities and credentials. This really helps to ensure that the information presented on the candidate's resume is accurate and thus reducing the risk of hiring someone who has misrepresented themselves. Second, reference checks can enable us to really evaluate a candidate's performance from the perspective of their peers and supervisors. So this can help us understand past performance, work style, and allow us to identify their strengths and weaknesses, which can be really helpful to make those informed decisions. Next, you really can confirm a good culture fit. So by hearing from previous colleagues, we can learn about a candidate's work style, their communication skills, interpersonal relationships, which can really help you determine if they're going to be a good fit for your team. And it's not only a culture fit internally, but if you're a hospitality customer, for example, you want to determine if a customer will represent your company values to make a good impression on your guests as well. And then lastly, reference checks can help identify any red flags. So a major problem in hiring right now is that the candidates are really good at presenting themselves. We know that applicants apply for about 16 or more jobs. So they might be really good at interviewing because they've done it a lot, right? And that's great. But sometimes candidates who present themselves well might not actually be successful in your specific work environment or the role that you're hiring for. All right, so typically you conduct reference checks, I'd say probably towards the end of the experience when you're pretty confident in who you're going to hire, or maybe you have, two top candidates and you want to use reference checks to really, push your decision over the edge. What we find is that when customers use reference checks, 45% of candidates are not hired as a result of reference checks. And that might sound weird, right? But really, reference checks, that's the whole point, right? They are helping you identify who is going to be a good hire and who might be a bad hire, right? All right, so just diving in quickly to what the experience looks like in Hireology, right? Like, how do you get started? So from the candidate page, you would select the send reference button. From there, you would, enter the contact details and the number of references that are required. To get diversified feedback, the minimum feedback is at least one manager reference and two peer references. So then you would send that specific reference check request. You would pick, you'd select the specific reference check that you would like to send. So they're all vetted by psychologists and scientifically created. So you'll want to select the reference check that is most relevant to the position you're hiring for, obviously. And then you will order the reference check. An email will be sent to the candidate to send and provide the email addresses of their references. So you'll be able to continually see the status throughout the process in the Hireology platform. And when candidates select their references, the automated survey will appear to come directly from the candidate. So it doesn't say it's from Hireology, it says it's from, candidate A, whatever their name is, right? And that really helps drive a significantly higher response rate. So we typically see references complete this within 48 hours. And compare that to all the manual process that you might be doing currently. That's the time savings is huge. Just a quick view right now of what you get back, right? And this is an example report of all of the feedback. It's all aggregated. That's going to help you with predictive analytics to statistically predict turnover, right? And so that number is included here on the report. Just some things to point out, right? Under competency and behaviors, you're able to break it down by managers and non-managers. There's an overall rating section here that can be really helpful in understanding how closely references are aligned to their overall numeric feedback on the candidate. And because you have, um, we do show the IP address, right? So, if you have a concern that digitally could the candidate just fill out the reference check themselves? Well, we do record the IP address so that you can really combat that fraud and ensure the references are actual contacts. And also because you have reference contact information, those are trusted people from the candidate's perspective. They're quality, right? So you can really start building your talent referral database with references to really grow that talent pipeline with other highly qualified candidates, which we're going to touch on later in the presentation. But finally, in addition to all the details you have to make a quality hire, you also have analytics related to speed, how fast the candidate and references replied. You can see, the report is pretty extensive, but it gives you much better information than, I don't know about you, but when I'm interviewing or when I'm, giving reference checks, I have my own notes and my chicken scratch, and sometimes I can't even read my own handwriting. So this really is nice because it aggregates everything for you, and helps you really make those smart hiring decisions. All right, so the last area within the process section that we're going to talk about today is background checks. According to a study from HR.com and the National Association of Background Screeners, 95% of employers use at least one type of background screening. So if you're in the 5% that isn't using background checks today, or maybe you're just doing it outside of the platform, background checks really help ensure that you hire candidates who are qualified, trustworthy, and safe. So Hireology partners with Accurate, who's a trusted provider of background checks, MVR reports, and drug screenings. That's all available in-app. So our platform is completely automated. It eliminates that manual paperwork and provides a seamless experience for both you and the candidate. Our process is designed to be legally compliant, so it ensures that your company is adhering to all those necessary regulations and requirements. And then finally, the checks are, once they're complete, they are delivered directly into your account in real time, allowing you to make those informed decisions and hire quickly and confidently. So background checks help you, they just give you peace of mind a little bit, right? Like if you're hiring the right candidate for the job. So you can confirm, again, the accuracy of the candidate's resume, their employment history, and other important details to ensure that they have the necessary skills and qualifications for the job. Additionally, background checks can also provide insights into a candidate's character and their work ethic. So helping you really identify individuals, again, who are trustworthy and responsible. And this can be especially important for jobs that involve handling sensitive information or working with vulnerable populations, right? And there's a domino effect here. By hiring candidates that meet those ethical standards, you will also start just attracting talent that share those core values. So similar to what we saw with reference checks, background checks also help you validate, right, if a candidate is qualified or not. So typically, background checks are done towards the end of the hiring process. And, what we find is that over a third of candidates are not hired as a result of their background check. So, we learned earlier from Anil that the cost of a bad hire can cost the organization up to 30% of that employee's annual salary. And background checks can help you reduce that risk of making that bad hire. All right, so just again, a few ways to order background checks in the platform. You can order it directly from the jobs page or the candidates page. So once you click send in either area, you'll be taken to a page to select the type of background check that you would like to conduct. Your most recent order will always appear at the top of that list, and you can go ahead and click continue to submit. And this is what it looks like from a candidate's perspective. So users, you can see it's mobile friendly, it's user friendly. Users do have to create a login here, but that's only because we are collecting private and sensitive information. That's the only time we would ever ask anybody to create an account. But like I said, it's very user friendly, easy to use from a candidate's perspective. And here's an example of just what the report looks like when you get it back. So it'll just review, depending on what test you did, it'll review it. You can clearly see, if there was any, criminal records, everything's kind of flagged. You can see if there's a record found, if it was just completed, if it was not, if nothing was found, which is always nice to see. And give you details on those discrepancies. So it's very similar to the other report. It really provides you that detailed information to make those decisions. All right, so another way to hire top talent is really to tap into your top employees' networks. So we're switching gears a little bit from process to more talking about how you can really diversify your sourcing to attract quality candidates. So what we found is that referrals are by far the best channel you can invest in to drive more quality applicants. So in our study, we found 90% of job seekers say that they're more likely to accept a job if a trusted friend vouches for that company. I could speak to experience. So I actually was a referral at Hireology. So we practice what we preach here. It was a very speedy process, and hopefully, I like to say I'm a qualified candidate here. So it's a nice story. All right, so diving into diversifying your sourcing channels. Okay, so you can really leverage referrals as a great way, like I said, to expand your talent pool, right? And this goes beyond just traditional recruitment channels. You can really increase the chances of finding good candidates by engaging past employees. You can reach out to past candidates that you've interviewed, but maybe they didn't make it to the hiring stage. And you can ask your existing employees for recommendations. By automating the referral process with campaigns, you really have a consistent stream of passive talent pipeline that you can make improvements to achieve the best results and drive more referrals going forward. So employee referral programs are really the top driver of quality candidates for Hireology customers. So what we see is referred applicants in Hireology are 7 times as likely to get hired than non-referral applicants. And really that comes down to just because these candidates are better quality. They're also hired 4 days faster on average than non-referral candidates. So you've got the quality and you've got the speed with referrals here. All right, so this is just an example of the referral campaigns, and we recently launched this about a month ago. So just wanted to highlight it here. If you go into referrals, you can go to messages, and you have now templates that you are able to select from to really create a steady pipeline, like I said, of candidates. All right, so just wrapping up, that's all I have in this section right now. As a reminder though, like quality is bigger than what we just discussed. So these are only just a few ways that Hireology can really help you from a quality perspective. So in addition to what we reviewed, things like job boards, sponsorship, career sites, they all allow you to diversify your sourcing channels to really attract that top talent. We covered a lot in the middle section here with streamlining your hiring processes. And then finally, you can also improve your candidate experience with communication tools. So really leveraging things like SMS text messaging to really capture the most qualified candidates quickly and create that awesome experience for them. So now I'm going to transition over. I am thrilled to introduce a customer who has been able to improve their quality by using some of the features that we discussed today. Christina Hall. I'm again thrilled to have her with us. So Christina is a highly accomplished professional. She's over 20 years of experience in guest services and event management. She's currently serving as the Director of People and Culture for events at the San Diego Padres baseball team. She leads the development for a positive and inclusive work culture for event staff, with a keen focus on talent acquisition, employee development, and fostering engagement. Christina ensures that the organization delivers exceptional guest services. And when she isn't cheering on the Padres, she enjoys traveling and hiking. I think she just had a trip to do just that. And sometimes she finds a way to combine both of those things. So I'd like to introduce Christina.
Well, thank you so much. First, I'd like to apologize. My video is not working, but you guys can all hear me. So I'm excited to be here. So just a little overview of the San Diego Padres. We're a Major League Baseball team. There's our beautiful ballpark there. And it's a pretty exciting business to be in. Just to give you an overview, we have a little over 1,500 employees. That was shocking for me to see written down. We're not just hiring baseball players, right? It takes 1,500 people to run the organization. So we have people who are frontline working in our ballpark, servicing our guests. We have a business, so we have marketing and accounting and all the things that it takes to run a business, as well as all our baseball side. So anything that is associated with our players, our scouting all over the world, our minor league teams. So that's really what makes up the 1,500 employees. We have 3 corporate recruiters. That's a lot for those folks. So we depend a lot on our hiring managers to help us. You can see the amount of departments that we support. Average applicants per job, 140. That is low, actually. We actually have a lot higher applicants. So for us, that doesn't seem to be a problem. Like others, we just never saw a downtick in people applying for jobs. And we have just been so thrilled to be a customer of Hireology. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next slides, but definitely Hireology and partnering with them has helped us improve our processes and helped us hire quality candidates. And that's really what it's all about. So I love this pun. How did we hit a home run with quality applicants? So as I just mentioned, we have never had an issue with people applying. Rather, the issue is, are they quality applicants, right? So we have to sift through, thousands and thousands of people that apply, and are they quality? And so 2 of the things that we have done through Hireology that helped make a difference has been the pre-screen survey and the background checks and drug screening. So let's talk about the pre-screen survey. So our initial challenge, as I just mentioned, is too many applications. And what was happening is that we were finding our hiring managers were just not looking at everybody. Well, that's a problem. If you're not looking at everybody in your pool, your top quality candidates could be in the percentage of applications that you didn't even look at. And so were we really hiring the best? Each department had their own process, pre-screen process. Some didn't even have a process. So there was no consistency. And that's really important when you're hiring people, is to make sure that you're consistent in your process. And then the last thing was we had no tracking capabilities. So whatever the pre-screen process was per each department, some people documented it, some people didn't. We never had any reference to go back to. So that was huge for us. And how did we handle that? We just kind of didn't. We just kind of bumbled through things until we decided to take, an active approach on that. We wanted to change how we process things, how we were going to look at this. So we looked to Hireology, and what did Hireology have for us that could help us get that consistency and help us look for those quality candidates? And so I think the first thing was the pre-screen survey. I think we dabbled in it in the beginning when we first started, but we never really utilized the tool as it should have been. So what we did is we made the decision to implement pre-screen surveys for all positions. Now, I am going to tell you, we don't do pre-screen surveys for players. That's a different approach. But really for everything else we do. And we made it that it was a requirement for all departments to use. It wasn't an option. If you wanted us to post a job, you had to have a pre-screened survey to go along with it. We, people and culture, would put 3 of the questions, include that in each pre-screened survey that we felt was important as a requirement for the organization. And then we asked the departments to come up with 6 to 7 statements of their own. And we asked them to put things that were requirements of the job. Because again, we are wanting to weed out people right at the beginning that don't meet the, the required qualifications. And then we can focus on quality candidates. We can just eliminate those others right away. We had some pushback from our hiring managers at first because they felt like it was a lot of work on the front end. Why do we have to do this? I don't want to. But after we went through a couple cycles of, talent acquisition, recruiting, they are now 100% on board. It helps them in their processes. If you have 500 people in your queue that you want to look at, well, if you can eliminate over half of those people because they didn't pass the pre-screen survey or they didn't even fill it out to begin with, well, you're already ahead of the game. So, game changer for us using the pre-screen survey. So as you can see, 67% of our applicants completed pre-screen surveys in the past year and 73% in the past 90 days. So we're just getting better results from that. The second thing that we also were challenged with and Hireology helped us with was our background check and drug screen process. So we used to use an outside vendor previously. The data was housed in separate systems. So, every time you had to log in or you had to do something, you had to do, you were in Hireology for some of the things. You then had to go to another platform to, do your background checks, drug screens. You had to do something else to do a different process. So we really, really wanted to streamline things. And so Hireology has enabled us to be able to do that. By using the outside vendor, we also were having difficulties. And I don't know if anybody else had the same issues or are having the issues, but we had a slow return time for our results and difficulties finding lab locations. It was terrible. We would have to wait 3 to 4 weeks sometimes for background checks to come back. We would also find that our vendor couldn't provide us with labs that could do our drug screens within 48 hours. Well, if you can't get somebody in 48 hours and it takes a week to get them in to go get their drug screen, well, guess what? It's not an actual drug screen anymore. So once we realized that Hireology had the ability to do the background checks and drug screen, we thought, why not try it? Let's see if we can get everything housed in one location and we can get better results. Absolutely amazing. It was the best decision we ever made, was to switch to doing this within Hireology. So we get fully integrated background checks and drug screenings all in the platform. As Kim mentioned earlier, it is so easy to use. We're right there in the Hireology platform. We're able to click on it, one click. We're able to then select what we're looking for, hit submit, and then everything is in one location. It sped up the process for our pre-employment requirements. I think Anil mentioned, like, timing is everything, right? If your process takes too long, guess what? You are going to lose quality candidates, even in the pre-screen, process before you're actually hiring them. If it takes too long, it takes 5-6 weeks to get a background check, they've moved on. They don't have time. It doesn't matter. Even if we're the San Diego Padres, They have moved on. They need a job. They need to go elsewhere. And we've never had an issue with timing. So we've reduced background checks and drug screening from 14 days to 1 day. Most of ours get back within 1 day, our background checks, and then in the drug screen portion within that 48 hours. Huge, 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 huge for us. So really excited about that partnership, and don't plan on, we did a trial, and within, I think we had a 90-day trial, and within a week, we were already signed up and ready to go moving forward. So love that. So other all-star features we use, because there's tons of all-star features within Hireology, and hopefully many of you are using them. The first one is our offer letters. We were previously using DocuSign. So once again, we were using a different process and a different platform to send those out. Took some work on the front end to get those built within a Hireology. Once those were built, it's literally a click. You know, our templates are built in there for each job with their managers. We click it, we hit the rate of pay, you know, and then all of a sudden we hit send. And with that, they get a welcome letter. The offer letter is attached to it. They sign off on it and it's sent back. And guess what? It's all in the same platform. I know I keep saying that, but everything is housed in one location. Huge difference in timing. Again, you know, having to get people, now we're getting the candidates used to everything's coming through Hireology. So those are the emails that they're looking for. They're not looking for things that may go into spam or somewhere else, but everything is tracked and coming from one location. So huge for us. We've got one side of our business using it, and we're transitioning the second side of our business to use it. Again, it was a game changer. Candidate texting, love candidate texting. I was at the Customer Connect last summer in Chicago, and I have to tell you, at first, you know, I mean, I text, but I didn't understand, like, what do you mean they'll answer you with texting versus an email? You know, they're the ones who applied for a job. They should be looking at their emails for us and whatnot. And, you know, I listened and I was like, okay. And I came back, and I think we were still noticing people not answering us. And I said, well, let's try this texting. That's what we learned. Let's try it. Guys, I'm a believer now. The response time to texting is 30 seconds, 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes max that they respond to us. And that is huge. Again, most of the time we're placing calls or emails to them and to offer them a job, and they just aren't responding to us. And so the moment we send a text or we're asking them for something that we're missing, almost instantaneously, they've responded to us, they've logged into the platform, and they've done what we've asked them to do. So huge, huge, huge. I would highly recommend everyone use the candidate texting. And then the last thing I think is the interview guide and scheduler. This is new for us. We've just started using it. It saves us a lot of time. It reduces the back and forth coordination of setting up interviews. But it also allows us to quickly schedule times with top talent and reduce the risk of losing them. Again, timing is everything. So if we can get that going right away, then it's a benefit to us. Also using that, we have guides. It enables us to set up guides for our hiring managers with ideal list of questions housed in one location. And it assures that we have streamlined the process and we have remained consistent in everything. So all 3 of these, or actually all 5 of the things that we've talked about, are huge game changers for us. It helps us hit a home run, excuse my baseball pun, but that's everything for us. If we can hit a home run, then we've done our job well and we've hired our best quality candidates.
Well, that is incredible, Christina. Thank you so much for sharing. I just quickly, I'm going to the White Sox game this weekend. So I feel like you've given me a lot to think of when I'm looking at all the event staff and just understanding how many people it actually takes and how you can get those quality candidates. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we are going to kind of move on to just questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We have Jess with us who's going to help us. Jess, have we had any questions come in on the chat already?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions that I want to address to the group here. Just a moment, let me grab those. So one of the actually recurring topics that came up was about reference checks, or I'm sorry, yeah, reference checks. And like, how do you make sure that, you know, you're getting the correct information? I'm sorry, let me read the question. How valid are work references in the current legal climate? So, and the other question was, how do you handle the legal side of reference checks? The concern here is that an applicant provides a reference and then you reach out and contact that reference and maybe they don't provide accurate information or what the applicant was hoping that they would say. And the best way to think of this is just to remember that references are provided by the applicant. So they get to choose the person that they want you to contact. So I think that's the most important thing to think of when you're looking at that. So the other thing is if there is, you know, a legal question, you can also reach out and connect them with we can connect you with our skill survey partner. So again, keep in mind, references are being provided by the applicant. So it's a good way to kind of know for sure that it's someone that they want you to reach out to. The other question that came up a couple of times was about pre-screen surveys. Let me see exactly what we have here. So one of the questions was, can a pre-screen survey be unique to each job posting? And the answer is yes, absolutely. You can have a custom pre-screen survey for each of your jobs if you'd like. We actually have a great knowledge base that has both articles and videos that kind of show you how to customize those pre-screen surveys. You can find that by logging into your Hireology account and clicking the question mark icon, or you can go directly to support.hireology.com. But basically the short answer is yes, you can do that. And it's actually a great idea because probably your different jobs are going to have different requirements and qualifications. The other question related to pre-screen surveys was if they'll ever be able to make them required for applicants. And right now we don't have plans to make them a requirement for applicants to complete. However, a good kind of rule of thumb is if someone is not taking the time to complete the pre-screen survey after they apply, they're probably not really interested in the job or they're not the best fit anyway. So keep that in mind as you're, thinking through your pre-screen surveys or you're reviewing your applicants and you see some have not completed that. You can just you can still take a look at their resume. If you want to contact them, you can, but if they haven't taken the time to complete that, you can rule them out if you don't feel like they're a good fit otherwise. And then, okay, so another question that came up is if there will be a transcript of the presentation. We will send out a recording and we are going to send out the slide deck to everyone, so you'll have access to that. And I think that is all of our questions for now. I don't see anything else that came in. So unless someone else has a last minute question, I think we'll wrap it up.
Great. Well, I have one more slide. So if you have any questions, feel free to type it in and we will get to it before we close. But just really quickly wanted to really announce that we are included in Indeed's ATS partner program. So as a silver partner, that means we work closely with Indeed to really build reliable integrations that optimize your hiring process. So we've been working closely with Indeed to drive more quality candidates. So earlier this year, we released an improvement to really automatically push jobs from Hireology to Indeed's 300 million job seekers. We also recently launched Indeed's Disposition Sync, which really closes that feedback loop and will help improve your quality applicants over time to find candidates that are best matched to the jobs. So we are happy to say that we will also be releasing sponsored job sync in Q3. So that means with only a few clicks, you'll be able to go from posting your sponsored job, from posting to sponsoring your job on Indeed, without ever having to leave the Hireology platform. So we know that Indeed sponsored jobs are 4.5 times likely to result in a hire. So I'm encouraging all of you to take out your phones, scan that QR code, sign up for our beta program. So if you're interested, if you sponsor jobs on Indeed, we'd love to have you involved in our beta to really test out that new feature, provide feedback, and make it the best that we can make that experience for you all. So feel free to scan the QR code. We'll be sending the presentation out. If you don't have time to get your phone out, you'll be able to do it after the fact. But we'd love to hear from you and just help make this experience great. So we don't think we saw any other questions come through the chat. So just want to thank everybody. I know we're a little early, but thank you for attending. You know, we appreciate the time that you are taking to learn more about Hireology. And I want to thank Anil, Jess, Christina, everybody for sharing their knowledge with us today. Thanks for joining. We look forward to chatting with you all again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.